contribution is that Vyasadeva wrote the Mahabharata. That is his personal contribution. He wrote the Mahabharata. And third contribution is the Vyasadeva wrote the Vedanta Sutra. Of course, actually, the fourth contribution, which is, we can say, the pinnacle of Vyasadeva's contribution, is he wrote the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Vyasadeva divided the Vedas, he wrote the Mahabharata and the Vedanta Sutra. Here, he saying that your friend Vyasadeva the Mahabharata, Yasmin Rinam Gramya Sukhanu Vade. So in that Mahabharata, he attracted the common people to the topics of the Lord by describing topics about material happiness. Gramya Sukha means material happiness. Matir Grihitanu Hare Katayam. He actually attracted the Matir Grihita, the minds of the people, to Harikatha through the topics of Gramya Sukha. So as I mentioned previously, Mahabharata, there are three main sections which purely deal with the topics of trans. Bhagavad Gita, Vishnu Sahasranama, and Narayaniya section. The other topics in Mahabharata, they are meant to direct a person to these topics of transcendence. Other topics are useful, especially from the worldly dharma's point of view. Other topics, like the lives of the Pandavas, are quite useful, definitely. Vidura Niti is very well useful for day-to-day life. And Bhishma Dev, the longest section in the Mahabharata, Bhishma Dev's instruction to Yudhishthira Maharaj in the Shanti Parva, they're quite useful, especially about the Varnashram Dharma, the application of Varnashram Dharma in different situations of our life. Because the life is actually, it's not black and white. There are so many varied situations arise in life. How to situations arise in our life. At that time, how to actually apply the different dharmas, the concept of apad dharma during emergency. They are useful, but especially purely the topics of transcendence, that means which talk about the supreme personality of Godhead, his pastimes, and about the path of bhakti, incarnations of the Lord, we can find in these three sections. And the purpose of Mahabharata is about these topics of Gramya Sukha in order to attract the minds of the topics, attract the minds of the readers to Harikatha. So, Vyasadeva, if we see, Vyasadeva is such a great person. Vyasadeva's position, if we can see, like some people, they are great because of having born in a great family. But they themselves may not have performed great, they may not have contributed great to the society. But they are great because of being born in a great family. Some people may be great because of their contribution to the world, but they may not be born in a great family. And they themselves might have contributed something significant to the society, but they may not be born in a great family, or they will not have given birth to great children who continue their legacy. So there are three things I am talking about. One is taking birth in a great family, and second is one's personal contribution to the society, and third is giving birth to such a children who will actually continue the great legacy person, who will contribute in the future. So if we see from these three aspects, like for example, there are personalities like Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu is the son of a great Brahmana, Kashyapa Muni. And he is the father of a great devotee, Prahlad Maharaj. But what is his personal contribution? He only created terror in the minds of the people. He was the greatest asura. Although from his lineage point of view, maybe he was great, son of Kashyapa Muni, and even from his son point of view, he gave birth to such a great Mahabhagavat Prahlad Maharaj. And for example, Anga, whose story will come in the 4th canto. Anga Maharaj is born in a dynasty of Swayambhuva Manu. He is born in the dynasty of Dhruva Maharaj. Such a great dynasty. And he personally, he was a great devotee of the Lord. He was a very his son was Vena, who was such a great demon. So we see like such kind of, we can see different combinations. Sometimes somebody's son may be great, his father may be great, but he himself might not have done anything. Like that, there are different combinations through these 3 criteria. But in the case of Vyasa, he is the son of Parashara Muni, who is the author of Vishnu Puran. Such a great lineage, Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva was born as the son of Parashara Muni. And Vyasa's son, his own son is Sukadeva Goswami, who became the first speaker of the Srimad Bhagavatam, who was liberated from the birth. And what is his personal contribution? His personal contribution is he wrote the entire Vedic literatures, Mahabharata, Vedanta Sutra, and Srimad Bhagavatam. So in all 3 counts, whether you see from a family lineage point of view, or from his son point of view, or his personal contribution, Vyasadeva is such a great personality. So in fact, we see in India, there are many Jnanapeeth award winners. They have memorials. But all of their books are based on the books of Vyasadeva, but Vyasadeva does not have memorial. So here, Vidura, the Maitreya Rishi, in fact, the Vidura is reminding Maitreya Rishi that your son Vedavyasa wrote the Mahabharata. Actually, Mahabharata, as I mentioned last class, in fact, there are several verses about the glorification of Mahabharata. If you put the 4 Vedas on one side and Mahabharata on another side, Mahabharata will weigh greater. That's the position of Mahabharata. Another verse which says that if a person gives 100 cows well decorated with golden ornaments in charity to qualified Brahmanas every day, this act you keep on one side. On another side, there is the act of hearing Mahabharata. But both these acts are equal. Hearing Mahabharata is equal to giving 100 cows decorated with golden ornaments and giving charity to qualified Brahmanas. Both these acts are equal. So like that, there are so many verses in glorification of Mahabharata. But here, Vidura is saying that I understand that the purpose of Mahabharata is to attract the minds of the people to Harikatha through the topics of Gramya Sukha. But my mind is satiated by hearing the topics of Mahabharata. But now I want to exclusively hear about Harikatha. So that is what Vidura is saying. Prabhupada also talks about Vedanta Sutra in the purport. Vedanta Sutra is a great work of Vyasadeva. Mahabharata, Vyasadeva wrote in order to attract the minds of people who are not philosophical in nature. And he wrote the Vedanta Sutra in order to attract the minds of who are greatly philosophical. Just one second. So Vedanta Sutra, there is a verse about Vedanta Sutra in the Rahasya Trayasara. Ramanujarya writes that there is no pramana higher than Vedanta and there is no higher tattva than the Supreme Lord who did the Amrita Manthan, who participated in the Amrita Manthan, churning of the milk ocean. And for the health of a person, there is nothing higher than having a lifestyle based on Sattva Guna. And among the mantras, there is nothing higher than the Dvaya mantra. Om Namo Narayanaya. Parasda Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So Vedanta Sutra is another great contribution of Veda Vyasa. But the natural commentary on Vedanta Sutra by the original author of Veda Vyasa is Srimad Bhagavatam. So, then going ahead, Vidura says that Sashradanasya Vivardamana Virakti Manyatra Karoti Pumsa Hare Padanu Smriti Nirvritasya Samasta Dukkha Peyamashu Datte. Here he says that the topics of the Supreme Lord, Vivardamana, they increase in the mind of the devotee. When the topics of the Supreme Lord increase in the mind of the devotee, what does it do? Virakti Manyatra, it creates virakti, a detachment towards everything else. A person becomes detached from dharma, artha, kama and even moksha. When the Harikatha becomes, when topics of Krishna increases in the mind of the devotee. And then the second result of Harikatha is that Samasta Dukkha Peyamashu Datte. Ashu means quickly. Krishna Katha quickly destroys Samasta Dukkha, all the suffering of the person who is Pade Anusmriti Nirvritasya. Nirvritasya means who is blissfully engaged in Hare Pada Anusmriti. Anusmriti means constant remembrance of the topics of the Lord. Who is blissfully engaged in constant remembrance of the topics of the Lord. To such a person, Krishna Katha quickly destroys all suffering. And Sa Shraddha Dhanasya. Shraddha Dhanasya is an important word. Prabhupada highlights in the purport. Shraddha Dhanasya means the person who has faith in Krishna Katha. What kind of faith? That means that person who thinks that Krishna Katha is the highest goal of human life. That faithful devotee who thinks that topics of the Lord are the highest goal of human life, to such a person, and the Krishna Katha creates virakti from everything, including dharma, artha, kama and moksha. And so Prabhupada says that Shraddha Dana can actually, only the faithful devotee can derive all the benefits of Bhagavad Gita. And anyone who tries to squeeze out some artificial meaning or interpretation from Gita for an ulterior motive is not a Shraddha Dana Pumsa. And then next verse, this very beautiful verse where Vidura says, in this verse, Vidura laments for those people who do not have interest in Krishna Katha. Tan shochya shochyan avidonu shoche hare katayam vimukam agena shinoti devo nimishastu yesham ayurvrita vadagati spratanam. So this verse, especially the third and fourth line, they are similar to the verse in the second canto. Ayur harati vaipuntam udyanastam cha yannasau tasyarto yakshano nita uttama shloka vartaya. The time destroys the lifespan of everyone. With the rising and setting of the sun, the lifespan of a person who is not engaged in Krishna Katha is decreased. So the same meaning comes in the third and fourth line. time destroys the life. Animisha also refers to the time factor. Time factor destroys the life of Ayur Kshinoti, destroys the life of who are absorbed in useless words, actions and mind. Vrita means useless. Vada Gati Smritina, who are absorbed in useless Vada topics, who are absorbed in useless actions and who are absorbed in useless thoughts. Time destroys their lifespan. And the first two lines, Vidura says that I lament, Anushoche. I am lamenting for Shochya Shochan. Here Vidura says, Prabhupada actually writes beautifully, there are three kinds of people. One kind of people, they are actually, they are in the mode of ignorance and passion. And these people are averse to, some of them are averse to the existence of God. They may be like Gnostic people. Or they may accept the existence of God, but they accept the existence of the Lord mainly as an order supplier. Okay, I order something, the God has to provide. So either the Gnostic people or people who accept the existence of God as an order supplier, these people are not interested in the topics of the Lord. So these people are in the mode of passion and ignorance. And then there are people in the mode of goodness who are impersonalists, and they believe the Supreme Brahman to be impersonal. And these people, they may accept the cult of bhakti, but they accept the cult of bhakti only as a means, but not as the end. They don't accept the conception of eternal servitude to the Lord. And these people who are in the mode of goodness, they take pity on the people who are in the mode of passion and ignorance. But the devotees, the pure devotees of the Lord, who accept the conception of eternal servitude to the Supreme Lord, they take pity on both on the eternalists and also on the materialists who are in the mode of passion and ignorance. Therefore, Prabhupada says, the persons who, because of the sinful activities, are averse to the topics of transcendence and thus ignorant of the purpose of Mahabharata, that is Bhagavad Gita, are pitied by the pitiable. Are pitied by the pitiable. That means those people who are atheistic people who are in the passion and ignorance, they are pitied by the pitiable. The pitiable refers to the impersonalists who are in the mode of goodness. The impersonalists, they take pity on the people in the mode of passion and ignorance, but the impersonalists, they do not know that they themselves are also pitied by the pure devotees. I also pity them. Means Vidura says that I take pity on both the impersonalists who accept Krishna Katha only as a means, not as an end. And I take pity on those who are opposed to the topics of Krishna Katha. Because I see that all these people's lifespan is reduced because of being absorbing themselves in philosophical speculation or theoretical ultimate goals of life or different modes of ritual. So we see that sometimes there are people who actually they may be taking pity on certain people, but they like, for example, somebody is in the position of a doctor, like some devotees, they brought some psychiatrist to meet Prabhupada, and actually they wanted, what was a very famous psychiatrist, they wanted Prabhupada to actually preach to him. So for that sake, they arranged that meeting. But the psychiatrist thought that these people have called me to see a patient. And he was waiting. And then he asked, where is the patient? I'm actually, I don't have much time. Please tell me when the patient is going to come. But he was not aware that actually he himself is the patient. And they brought him to meet the doctor. So impersonalists, they take pity on the common materialistic people, but they are not aware that they themselves are actually are objects of pity. That they themselves are objects of pity by the pure devotee. So therefore, that's what Prabhupada is writing that pitied by the pitiable, and I also pity them. The pure devotees of the Lord take pity on both of them, because both the people, that is impersonalists and the materialistic people, they waste their most valuable time in the human form of life and false pursuits. And further, Vidura says that please describe the topics of the Lord for the auspiciousness of this world. Like some verses I will just quickly describe, because we have to cover certain syllabus in this particular 8 classes. Then the 15th verse, Vidura says that, therefore for the auspiciousness of the world, please sing to us the purifying topics of the Lord. And then the 16th verse he says that please describe in detail about the avatars of the Supreme Lord. Kindly chant the superhuman transcendental activity of the Supreme Controller. Vidura is saying that after briefly answering my questions in order to satisfy me, then in detail describe about the avatars of Krishna, since all the topics should end in sweetness. Madhurena samapayet. So describe about the avatars of Krishna. In this way, till the 16th verse, Vidura asked these questions to Maitreya Rishi. And then the next 5 verses, 17 to 21, Maitreya first glorifies Vidura. And he shows his respect to Vidura. And then from the 22nd verse, Maitreya Rishi begins to answer the questions of Vidura. So, 17th verse, Sayevam Bhagavan Prishta Shatra Kausharava Munihi Pumsam Nishreyasarthaya Tamaha Bhagumanaya. So in this way, being asked by Vidura, Nishreyasarthaya. Vidura asked these questions, Nishreyasarthaya, for delivering the people of Kali Yuga. Pumsam Nishreyasarthaya. Therefore, Maitreya gave Vidura great respect. Bahu Manaya. And then Maitreya began to speak to Vidura. We see this is a common theme. When the sages of Naimisharanya asked the 6 questions to Suta Goswami began the answer by saying that what is that verse? He said, Atmavit Sammata Pumsam. He said, your questions are glorious because they are actually related to the topics of Krishna. And they will create auspicious for the entire world. And Shukdev Goswami also glorified the question of Parishit Maharaj by saying that Variyan Yeshate Krishna Krita Loka Hitam Dripa Atmavit Sammata Pumsam Shrotavyadishu Yakapara. Your question is actually approved by the great learned people, and it is the best of all the questions, and it will be beneficial to the entire world. So we see the same pattern with the questions of the sages of Naimisharanya or Parishit Maharaj or Vidura's questions, that they ask a question which will be beneficial to the common people. Of course, they had interest in hearing about the higher topics of the Lord, but they begin with the questions whose answer will be beneficial to the common people. And this attitude is actually appreciated by all the speakers. So Maitreya Rishi is saying that Bahu Manaya, he gave great respect to Vidura. He glorifies Vidura. Maitreya Uvacha Sadhu Krishtam Paya Sadhu Lokan Sad Anugrishnata Kirtim Vitanvata Loke Asmano Adoksha Jasmana. Yeah, one more thing which I want to point out is that in the previous verse, 17th verse, Maitreya Rishi is called by Shukdev Goswami by the word Bhagavan. Sayevam Bhagavan Krishna. So Maitreya Rishi is a great personality. Like last week or the last class, the question was about Maitreya Rishi. Yeah, Maitreya Rishi was a Jnana Mishra Bhakta at that time when Krishna began instructing Vidura, the Uddhava and Maitreya. But he was a great person, he became a pure devotee. And we see that, we'll see in one of the later verses, how Krishna had trusted Maitreya Rishi. Krishna told Maitreya Rishi to give the knowledge to Vidura. So Maitreya Rishi is saying that Adoksha Jasmana, oh Vidura, your mind is absorbed in Krishna, Adoksha Jasmana. And by asking this question, Lokan Sadhu Anugrishnata, you are showing mercy to the common people, and Kirtim Vitanvata Loke. Simply by asking these questions, you are spreading your own glory to the people. You are spreading your own glory to the people just by asking these questions. And Sadhu Krishnam, you asked excellent questions. So Adoksha Jatmana, Vidura was always absorbed in thought of the Lord. And Maitreya could actually update that Vidura's quality. So only Prabhupada writes in Nectar of Instruction, the purity of a devotee can be understood by only another person who is at the same level of purity. It takes one to know one. So the Vidura is Adokshaja Atmanaha. They could recognize that. That means Maitreya is also in a great. That's why he could recognize that Vidura is in the stage of being absorbed in Krishna. And then he says that Naita Chitram Tvai Kshattar Badarayana Viryaje Grihito Ananya Bhavena Yatvaya Haririshwara. He says that you are directly born of Vyasadeva. It is not astonishing that you are a great personality because you are born from the seed of Vyasadeva. Grihito Ananya Bhavena, you have pure devotion to the Lord. Yat Tvaya Haririshwara, you have directly met the Supreme Lord. So Prabhupada talks about the birth of Vidura. So if we see a brief points about the birth of Vidur, Dhritarashtra and Pandu. All three are sons of Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva only impregnated Ambika and Ambalika. So Vyasadeva is the supreme personality of Godhead. So Vyasadeva's semen is like the Mahaprasad. But Ambika and Ambalika, because they did not have the right disposition to receive that mercy of Vyasadeva, the Mahaprasad of Vyasadeva in the form of his semen, therefore they gave birth to a blind son, that is Dhritarashtra, and they gave birth to a son with a Kushta Roga. Pandu Maharaj had that disease. So we can see this, if you see the study, the birth of these three personalities, Pandu, Dhritarashtra and Vidura, it's an important Siddhanta which comes out. On one side there is the mercy of the Supreme Lord is there. But on another side, the attitude of the living entity is also important. Ambika, Ambalika are that maid servant, they represent the living entity. And Vyasadeva is the Supreme Lord. Because Ambika and Ambalika did not have the right attitude, they gave birth to sons who had some defects. On the other hand, that maid servant, because she had the right attitude, she was very grateful to receive that Mahaprasad of Vedavyasa. Therefore, she gave birth to a great Mahajan in the form of Vidura, who is the incarnation of Yamaraj. So therefore, on one side there is the mercy of the Lord, and on another side there is the effort of the living entity. So just like you may plant the right seed, but if the land is not fertile, and then the seed has to be sown. There may be pure water, but if the pure water, if it passes through impure filter which is having impurities, then what comes out of that impure filter will be impure water. So therefore, the mercy of the Lord and the effort of the living entity, the attitude of the living entity is important. Like, for example, lion very powerful, but in order to hold the lion's milk, you have to have the golden container. But if the lion's milk is poured into something other than the golden container, the container will get spoiled, or the container can get broken. So therefore, that this birth of Pandu, Dhritarashtra, Vidur shows this important principle, Siddhanta of the mercy of the Lord and the attitude of the living entity, which is the important Vedantic truth. So, yeah, next verse, 20th verse, Maitreya Rishi says that you are not only the son of Vyasadeva, but you are also actually Yamaraj incarnation. You were previously cursed by Mandavya Muni, and therefore you are born through the Vyasadeva in the womb of the servant woman of Vichitravirya. Once the Mandavya Muni, he was taken to Yamaloka. Yamaraj was about to punish him, and Mandavya Muni was surprised, like why he is going to be punished. And he was told that in your childhood you had pierced certain insects unknowingly. So for that mistake you are actually suffering this. And Mandavya Muni said that I did that mistake unknowingly, how can you punish me for this? And then he cursed Yamaraj that you become actually, you may take birth as the son of a Shudra woman. So Maitreya Rishi is glorifying that you are actually the incarnation of Yamaraj. Yamaraj is a great personality. Many times in the Bhagavatam, whether it is Parikshit Maharaj or Prithu Maharaj, when their intelligence is glorified, they will be glorified by comparing them with Yamaraj. Because Yamaraj is in the position of awarding punishment, giving suitable judgment to the people, awarding exact punishment. If you punish more than that is required, that is a sign of karma, that is a sign of lust. And if you punish less than that is required, that means you are actually partial to the person. You are showing favoritism to the person. You have to give punishment exactly in proportion to the mistake the person has committed. Nothing more, nothing less. To judge that, it requires a very fine intelligence, it requires a high level of maturity, it requires a deep understanding of the Shastra, not just theoretical understanding, deep understanding of the Shastra along with application. So to give the exact punishment, nothing more or nothing less. Therefore, Yamaraj's position is a very great position. He's saying that you are actually Yamaraj, and with the curse of Mandavya Muni, you have taken birth in the form of this Vidura. So we see that although Yamaraj was cursed by Mandavya Muni, because Yamaraj was such a great personality, a great devotee of the Lord, he turned the curse into a blessing. So bhakti is the art of turning curses into blessings. So Yamaraj, when he was born as a Vidura, he took it as a blessing because now he is relieved of the official responsibility for some time, and he can freely engage in the Supreme Lord. Of course, his official service is also the service of Supreme Lord as a Yamaraj. But sometimes certain official services as a manager may involve different pressures and dealing with the different things, etc. It may not involve direct Krishna consciousness, but that is also a service which needs to be done. The demigods perform those services. But Yamaraj felt that Yamaraj took that curse as a blessing. So now actually I will be relieved of the official service for some time, as long as the curse period is there. And I can free to engage in preaching the glories of the Lord. I am free to engage in the direct service of the Lord. He took it, converted it into a blessing. Another Maitreya is that Bhavan Bhagavato Nityam Sammata Sanugatyaha Yasya Jnanopadeshaya Madishat Bhagavan Vrajan. And Bhavan Bhagavato Nityam. And so you are not only the son of Vyasade, you are Yamaraj. And thirdly, you are recognized by the Lord eternally. Bhavan Bhagavato Nityam Sammataha. Sammataha means recognized. You are recognized by the Lord eternally. So Vidura is called as Prabhu Padopadana. That means the pillow of the Supreme Lord. Krishna would actually keep his feet on the lap of Vidura. He will use lap of Vidura as a pillow and then he will the feet on the lap of Vidura and sleep. Just like Shankar Pandit, I think Shankar Pandit or some devotee, he was considered as the pillow of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Vidura was the pillow of Krishna. So you are recognized by the Lord eternally. In fact, Yasya Jnanopadeshaya Madishat Bhagavan Vrajam. When the Lord departed to Vaikuntha, the Lord instructed me to teach the knowledge to you. So just like Krishna instructed Uddhava to give the knowledge to the sages of Badrika Ashram, Krishna instructed Maitreya Rishi to give knowledge to Vidura. So now from the 22nd verse, Maitreya Rishi starts answering the questions of Vidura. So 1 second. The first Maitreya Rishi begins, Atate Bhagavan Leela Yoga Mayaru Brahmhita Vishwastiti Udbhavantartha Varnayami Anupurvashaha. So Varnayami, I will describe to you the Bhagavat Leela, the pastimes in Vishwastiti Udbhavantartha, in the pastimes of the Lord in creation, maintenance and annihilation. And the Lord performs his pastime through his Maya potency. Yoga Maya Uru Brahmhita. Using his Maya potency, the Lord performs creation, maintenance and annihilation. And Anupurvashaha means in sequentially. The Lord performs creation, maintenance and annihilation with the Maya potency. Through the help of Maya potency, but sequentially. So I will describe this. Bhagavan Eka Asedam Agra Atmatmanam Vibhuhu Atmechanu Gatavatma Nanamat Upalakshanaha. So Maitreya describes the state of the universe before the creation. So before creation, Bhagavan Eka Asedam. Eka means before the creation, the Lord alone existed. The Lord alone existed. Prabhupada writes here in the purport that the second canto, 9th chapter, in the Chatushloki Srimad Bhagavatam, the Lord began by saying that Aham evasam evagre nanyat yat sadasata param. That means the Lord alone existed before the creation. I alone existed before the creation. The same thing here, Bhagavan Eka Asedam. So, the Lord who exists in the form of Paramatma and Brahman, according to the viewpoint, the last line of the verse, Nanamati Upalakshana, this is an important line. Nanamati Upalakshana means that according to the various viewpoints, the Lord manifests either as Brahman or Paramatma or as Bhagavan. There are three classes of transcendentalists: Jnanis, Yogis and Bhaktas. To the Jnanis, the Lord manifests, the Lord reveals the Brahman feature. To the Yogis, the Lord reveals the Paramatma feature. And to the Bhaktas, the Lord reveals the Bhagavan feature, which is the complete feature of the Absolute Truth, which includes the Paramatma and Brahman. So, Nanamati Upalakshana means the Lord exists in the form of Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan according to the Lord reveals his position according to the viewpoint, Nanamati Upalakshana. The Supreme Self is symptomized by different names. That's what Prabhupada is translating. And Lord alone existed. Bhagavan Eka Asedam before the creation. And before the creation, at that time, none of the living entities' bodies were not manifest. The Lord existed prior to the creation as one without a second. It is by Him only that creation is made possible, and again everything merges in. So there are several actually verses just to support this verse. Bhagavan Eka Asedam. For that there are several Upanishadic verses which are quoted by Prabhupada in the second paragraph. Like Vasudeva Idam Agra Asit Na Brahman Na Shankaraha. That in the beginning, before the creation, Vasudeva alone existed and not Brahma nor Shiva. Eko Narayana Yevasinna Brahma Neshana. Only Narayana exists and not Brahma or Shiva. Like the different verses, Upanishadic verses, which are quoted in support to this particular line, Bhagavan Eka Asedam. So you see that because Srimad Bhagavatam is a natural commentary on Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta Sutra is like the Upanishad means Vedanta. Upanishad means conclusion of the Vedas. Vedanta Sutra is conclusion of the Vedas put in a Sutra format. And Srimad Bhagavatam is a natural commentary on Vedanta Sutra. So therefore, you can find in the different verses of the Mahabharata, the Srimad Bhagavatam, you can find different truths mentioned in the Upanishad and Vedanta Sutra. They are embedded in the different sections of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And there is one Vaishnava he has written that how in the Vedanta Sutra there are 545 sutras are there. There are totally 545 Vedanta Sutras according to one count. According to another count, there are 555 sutras. So one Vaishnava has written that how the different verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam, they map with the different sutras of the Vedanta Sutra. For example, in the first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the word comes as Satyam Param Dhimahi. The Satyam Param Dhimahi, it is mapping with the first sutra of Vedanta Sutra, that is Atato Brahma Jigyasa. One must inquire about the Supreme Brahman. The purpose of inquiry to come to the point of meditation. That meditation is there in the first verse, Satyam Param Dhimahi. And the last verse of the Vedanta Sutra is Anavritti Shabda. The liberation from the material world occurs by sound vibration. And the last verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam is Nama Sankirtanam Yasya Pranamo. That by the Nama Sankirtan of the Supreme Lord is highlighted in the last verse. In that way, we can see the different verses of Vedanta Sutra mapped with that. So here in this particular verse, Bhagavan Eka Asedam, the Lord alone existed before the creation. The same truth is mentioned in the Upanishad. That's why the verses are quoted in the Prabhupada's purport. And then, the next verse, Sava Yitadaka Napashi Drishya Mekarat Mene Santam Ivasmanam Supta Shaktir Asupta Drik. So that one Purusha, the Supreme Purusha, the Mahavishnu, who glances over Prakriti. At the time of beginning of the creation, Drashta, the Supreme Lord, who glances over Prakriti, na pashyat. He could not see Prakriti. He could not see the material energy. The material energy was sleeping at that time. He could not see the material energy. So, na pashyat drishyam ekarat. The one Purusha, the ekarat, the one Supreme, he could not see the material energy. Mene asantam ivatmanam. Mene asantam ivatmanam. And the Supreme Purusha, the Mahavishnu, that asantam ivatmanam, he considered himself non-existent. He felt an emptiness. Just like a husband feels an emptiness without the wife. The Lord felt somewhat insufficient, like a husband feeling lonely the absence of his wife. So the Lord also felt, Mene asantam ivatmanam suksha sukta shaktir asukta dhru. So the Lord, the possessor of Maya, why he felt the emptiness? Because the Maya potency, his consort, was sleeping. Sukta Shakti. Before the creation, the Maya was sleeping. And but the Lord's other spiritual consorts, they are awake. Because in the spiritual world, the Lord's all the pastimes are going on. Lakshmi Sahasra Sata Sambrama Shevyamanam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajam. The spiritual world, the Lord is served by so many millions of Lakshmi Devi. So all the Lakshmi Devi is a spiritual world, but the material energy was sleeping. So therefore the Lord felt lonely, or the Lord felt somewhat insufficient. Because the material energy was sleeping. So Prabhupada says that because the Lord was wanting to create, he wanted the creation to happen. That the Lord wanted to create the cosmic manifestation because the Lord wants to give another chance for the conditioned soul. That is the kindness of the Lord. He wants to give chance to the conditioned souls again and again. Therefore, he wants to create. So, but at that time, the material energy was sleeping. Just like when the husband wants to enjoy with the wife, and the wife is sleeping, and the husband will awaken the wife. Actually, wants to awaken his wife from the sleeping state for the sake of enjoyment. But actually it is not some selfish enjoyment, because it is for the purpose of creation, so that the living entities will get the material bodies, so that they will get an opportunity to get out of the material existence. So the whole process is to enlist sleeping conditioned souls to the real life of spiritual consciousness, so that they may become as perfect as the ever liberated souls in the Vaikuntha Loka. Yeah, next verse. So the next verse describes what is Maya potency. Sava yetasya samdrashtu shakti sadasadatmika Maya nama mahabhaga yedam nirmude vidu. So this verse says Maya nama mahabhaga. So the Maya potency, the Prakriti, material nature, the Maya potency is composed of Sat, Asat, Atmika. Sat, Asat, Atmika, it is composed of and the effect. And Yetasya Samdrashtu, the Maya potency belongs to the Supreme Lord who glances over her. Samdrashtu. That means Maya is the energy. Whose energy? It is the energy of the Supreme Lord. Mahabhaga. And this energy is called Maya, and she is Mahabhaga. Mahabhaga is actually, Maitreya is addressing Vidura by the word Mahabhaga, who great soul. Maya Nama. This energy is called Maya, and Yayedam Nirmame Bhuku. By its energy, the Lord creates this universe. Nirmame. Nirmame means creating. Nirman Karna. Lord creates this universe. So I'll just take if there are any questions at this point, they can, or if they want to share something, they can share, and then we'll go ahead in the 26th verse.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, like we saw that Vidura is actually Yamraj and he's a Mahajan. But Uddhava and Maitreya Muni are instructed by the Lord. Like, of course, Maitreya Muni was instructed by the Lord, and Uddhava was told him to go to Maitreya Muni. So how come they are like, because Uddhava is such a pure devotee of the Lord, he's like a Mahatma. So how come they are not Mahajans? Because they are instructing Vidura. So when Vidura is a Mahajan, that's my question. Yamraj is a Mahajan. So how come they are also not in that they also not given that padavi of being a Mahajan then, you know? If you can just elaborate on that, the definition of a Mahajan.
No, since Mahajan, anybody who follows in the footsteps of the Mahajan, they also become Mahajan. The 12 Mahajans are mentioned in the Bhagavatam.
Yes.
It's not that only they are. Anybody who follows in the footsteps of the Mahajan, they can also become Mahajan. Some 12 names are mentioned.
Yes, Prabhuji. The 4 Kumaras, then Swayambhu Manu, Narada, Shiva, Janaka, all of them. So how come Uddhav's name, who is a pure devotee of the Lord, and for example Maitreya Muni, who's instructing Vidura, how come they are not Mahajans? They are not considered.
No, they are also Mahajan. They are also Mahajan only.
Okay.
So it's not that somebody is not in the list of Mahajan. They are not pure devotees actually.
Okay.
So Gautam, some select personalities are mentioned as the Mahajan, but apart from that, there are innumerable pure devotees. Exactly.
Okay, Prabhu.
They are also like Mahajans.
Yes. Okay. Just that their names are not there, so that's all. Okay.
Gopis' names are also not mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam Mahajans list. So this devotee has rightly pointed out. That doesn't mean that they are not Mahajans. They are inferior to Mahajans. Gopis are the topmost devotees of Krishna. So definitely, it's not a frozen list actually. We say Christian, they only say that there is only one Messiah, one Son of God. They can't talk about New Jerusalem. They can't talk about some new Mecca. If somebody says new Mecca, New Jerusalem, immediately like that person will be killed or something. They only talk about one Son of God. But in Sanatan Dharma, like Prabhupada created new Vrindavan, new Jagannath Puri. And there are so many acharyas, gurus who come in the parampara and this thing. So Mahajan is not a frozen list actually. All these are the gopis or the Uddhava, all these personalities are actually Mahajans. So anybody if somebody from Pune who are attending the Bhakti Vaibhav class, they may actually ask the questions. Bombay devotees, I will answer their questions separately in the regular classes because I would be happy to answer their questions. But in this forum, especially those who are attending Bhakti Vaibhav, will actually answer.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, may I ask a question? Shyamji has asked.
Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, the Vedanta Sutras, Srimad Bhagavatam is a natural commentary on Vedanta Sutra. And we have generally heard couple of these Vedanta Sutras, correlation with certain Srimad Bhagavatam verses. As you said, Janmadhyasya yataha or Anavritti Shabdat. And some more we might have heard. But the thing is that we just repeat the same thing. Apart from that, we don't know much about this. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the other devotees have done the deep study. So, first thing is that I'm just repeating this, that it is a natural commentary. Do I also need to actually understand this by myself and come to the conviction? Because many times we just repeat it, but at some point of time we think that is it that the acharyas have just mentioned it like this, or should I also should go and see it and check it, yes, and get that conviction. So, is it advisable that we should also try to understand this and deepen our understanding on this, or we should just accept it and then we should just move on? It is not actually required.
Yeah, regarding this point, first we actually study the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam, Rashanansi asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that how do we study Vedanta Sutra? Because in the Advaita Sampradaya, the main sadhana is actually study the Vedanta Sutra. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said you study Vedanta Sutra through Srimad Bhagavatam, because Srimad Bhagavatam is a natural commentary on the written by the author. So we first actually study Srimad Bhagavatam nicely, because in Srimad Bhagavatam, in Krishna Leela, Vedanta Sutra is there. But in Vedanta Sutra, Krishna Leela is not there. Vedanta Sutra, only those sutras are there, but you won't find Krishna's pattern. But in the Krishna Leela, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, you have the Krishna's pastime, and within that the Vedanta Sutra is also there. If, for example, the Brahma Vimohan Leela, when Brahma was bewildered, what is happening, like stole these cows and cowherd boys, but they are as it is there, and he was checking here and there whether these cows and cowherd boys are there or not, and he went to the caves and he saw that he saw the cows and cowherd boys in those caves as it is. And then he came back, he saw that the same cows and cowherd boys are playing with Krishna, and he was confused. So at that time, when he was confused, he was bewildered, at that time all those cows and cowherd boys turned into the Vishnu forms. Then he understood, all these are Krishna only. Then he actually got the realization of the Upanishadic statement, Sarvam Kaluvidam Brahma. Everything is nothing but Krishna. Yeah, all these forms are Krishna only. And then he just offered prostrated obeisance. So in that sense, in that Brahma Vimohan Leela, that Sarvam Kaluvidam Brahma, that Upanishadic conclusion is there. But Upanishadic conclusion is there, how it is there through the Krishna's pastimes. But when you read the Vedanta Sutra separate Brahma, there you can't find the Krishna's pastime of Brahma Vimohan Leela. So in Vedanta Sutra, Krishna Leela is not there. But in Srimad Bhagavatam, in Krishna Leela, the Vedanta Sutra is there. The gopis were actually searching for Krishna. When Krishna disappeared from the Ras Leela, the gopis were frantically looking for Krishna everywhere. And they were asking the trees and creepers. And then they saw Radharani, and then they started singing the Gopi Gita when they put their great effort and they could not find Krishna. This is a very sweet pastime described in Bhagavatam, but this contains the Upanishadic conclusion. That Upanishadic verse. By your own endeavor, by your expert speech, or by your tapasya, by your charity, by your eloquence of the study of the Shastras, you cannot understand the absolute truth. Only when the absolute truth decides to reveal himself to you, only then you can actually understand the absolute truth. This Upanishadic verse is there. And this Upanishadic conclusion is there in that Gopi is searching for Krishna. So in that sense, if we see in the various verses in the Bhagavatam purport, where you carefully observe, in different Bhagavatam purports, some of the Upanishadic conclusions will be quoted. Vedanta Sutra is the compressed version of all the Upanishads. So when you carefully see the Bhagavatam purport, you can see that wherever the Upanishadic conclusion, Upanishadic verses are quoted, that means we can see the correlation between that particular pastime with the Upanishadic conclusion. And of course, if somebody has the capacity and inclination and the time, one can also make a attempt studying the Vedanta Sutra. And one can study the Vedanta Sutra. But first one can actually study Srimad Bhagavatam properly, because Srimad Bhagavatam includes the Vedanta Sutra. And then, if a person has the capacity to study Vedanta and time and inclination, because Vedanta Nyaya Shastra and Mimamsa Shastra, it requires a certain background of having at least some understanding of Nyaya Shastra and Mimamsa Shastra. Traditionally, people will study Nyaya and Mimamsa thoroughly, and then they would come to the point of studying Vedanta Sutra. So Vedanta Sutra, it requires more preparation also. But Srimad Bhagavatam, in one sense, the devotee has Nayam Atma Pravachanena na Labhyo, that verse. The same verse. Nayam Atma Pravachanena Labhyo na Medaya na Bhaguna Shrutena Yam Evesha Vrunate Tena Labhya Satyesha Atma Vrunate Tanumpa. So this Upanishadic conclusion, Vedanta Sutra conclusion, that is there in the Gopi for Krishna. The same conclusion is there we will see in the 8th chapter. Brahmaji will be trying to find out the origin of his birth. So in that sense, in the pastimes of the Bhagavatam, the Upanishadic conclusions are there. And you can actually, if you are carefully reading the purports and this one, those things will be quoted. And that way you can map. And then if somebody has a separate capacity and inclination, one can study Vedanta Sutra, but it requires some pre-work of studying Nyaya Shastra and Mimamsa Shastra, because many concepts are used. And by that, studying Bhagavatam and Vedanta Sutra, it also, one's conviction increases even more. Like one is to just hear that, Bhagavatam is a natural commentary and Vedanta Sutra. And then when you study Vedanta Sutra, and then when you actually see that, your conviction increases even more. It becomes more solidified. But it's not necessary. If somebody doesn't have the capacity or inclination or something, one need not read Vedanta Sutra. One can just read Bhagavatam again and again. That includes Vedanta Sutra. If somebody wants to do, one can do also.
And Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Radhika, Vallabha Prabhuji. Am I audible?
I'll just take the last question and then we'll leave. So we read again and again that Mahabharata was compiled for the less intelligent. This is relative to Vedanta, isn't it? The Mahabharata contains a lot of stories. Vedanta Sutra, it is only very crisp, very philosophy is there in a very concise form in the Vedanta Sutra. Like I am attending one course on Vedanta. Like it is, you can't get any story or no, not even a single story. The class is actually filled with concepts after concepts only. There are so many definitions and so many it involves so many concepts and analytical thinking. So sometimes one who does not have that bent of mind, they may get bored actually soon. So Mahabharata contains the message of the Vedas, but through interesting stories. People in Kali Yuga, in one sense, everyone is born as a Shudra, it is mentioned. So people are easily inclined towards stories, and the same message of the Vedas is presented through the Mahabharata. And in relative, Vedanta contains philosophy form. Srimad Bhagavatam, it actually is the commentary in Vedanta Sutra, and Srimad Bhagavatam is for the Kali Yuga that going to preach. Yes, someone devotee wants to add to the last answer. Yeah, definitely one can add.
Prabhuji, that part I think comes in Jiva Goswami's comment.
Wants to add something to the last answer.
Hare Krishna.
Someone. Yes.
Prabhuji, I think that part.
They can add some comments, whatever exactly.
Hare Krishna. Am I audible, Prabhuji?
Haribo?
Hare Krishna. Am I audible?
I received a message that one devotee wants to add something to the last answer.
Mic is not connected.
Okay, I'll go ahead. Nobody is responding. So some issue with the mic here. Maybe I'll go ahead at the end of the 1 o'clock at that time. That you can tell the devotee to add. So we'll go to the 26th verse. So Kala Vrityatu Mayayam Gunamayam Adokshajaha Purushena Atma Bhutena Viryamadatta Devan. So the Lord, by his glance, he places the living entities into Prakriti. So Viryam Adatta Viryavan. The Lord, who is full of potency, he placed the Virya, he placed the semen. The semen refers to the living entity. Potency. The Lord is Viryavan, the Lord is full of potency, and he placed the Virya refers to the living entity into the material nature. In Purushena Atma Bhutena Gunamayam Adokshajaha. That became agitated by the gunas. So Kala Vrityatu Mayayam, that means with the initial action of time. So the Lord's And the second point is that the Lord could impregnate the material nature simply by glancing over material nature. So this shows the omnipotent nature of the Supreme Lord. Angani yasya sakalendriya vritti manti. Lord's all his senses are actually, they can perform the activities of any other senses. And then, another point is that the living entities are supplied from the Supreme Lord. Viryam Adatta Viryavan. That means the living entities are supplied from the Supreme Lord. The living entities are not products of the material nature. People think that life comes from chemicals. But here, the living entities are supplied by the supreme living entity, the supreme Lord. So the living entities, they are not coming from the matter, they are not coming from chemicals. So therefore, in this way the creation starts. So the next series of verses, some of the verses I will describe in summary about the process of creation. You might have also heard this process of creation, the second canto. This process of creation will also come again in the Kapila section also. Again, actually, I will describe this process of creation. So here, the Lord glances over the material nature, the Maya potency. So by this glance, being impelled by the time factor, the first thing, the invisible Prakriti, from the invisible Prakriti arose the Mahat Tattva. The Maya potency transformed into Mahat Tattva. The Mahat Tattva is the sum total of all the material elements. So Mahat Tattva, this Mahat Tattva is composed of the Sattva Guna. The 27th verse, the word used is Vijnana Atmana. Vijnana Atmana means it is composed of knowledge in. So first Mahat Tattva appears. The nature of Mahat Tattva is that it is composed of knowledge. And this Mahat Tattva, it exists in every living entity in a partial form. In the 13th chapter of the Gita, Krishna speaks that Mahabhutani Ahankaro Buddhir Avyaktam Evacha. I think the 5th or 6th verse. Mahabhutani Ahankaro Buddhir Avyaktam Evacha. In that verse, that Mahabhutani refers to the 5 gross elements. Ahankara refers to the false ego, which is the cause of the gross elements. And Buddhi in that verse refers to the Mahat Tattva. And Avyakta refers to the Pradhana. So in every living entity, there is a partial portion of the Mahat Tattva. So by the Lord's glance over the Lord placed the living entities into the Maya potency, and from the Prakriti first arose the Mahat Tattva. This Mahat Tattva is composed of Sattva Guna. And when the Mahat Tattva becomes predominated by Rajo Guna, so the portion of Mahat Tattva which is predominated by Sattva Guna is called as Mahat Tattva. The portion of Mahat Tattva which is predominated by Rajo Guna is called as Sutra Tattva. And the portion of Mahat Tattva which is predominated by Tamo Guna is called as Ahankara. There are 3 terms: Mahat Tattva, Sutra Tattva and Ahankara. The Mahat Tattva which is predominated by Sattva Guna is called as Mahat Tattva. Mahat Tattva which is predominated by Rajo Guna is called as Sutra Tattva, which Vishnu Chakravarti writes in the purport. And Mahat Tattva which is predominated by Tamo Guna is called as Ahankara. So that Ahankara is mentioned in the next verse. Sopi Amsha Guna Kalatma Bhagavad Drishti Gochara Atmanam Vyakarodatma Vishwasyasya Siddhitripaya. So Mahat Tattva which was being created, whose form arises by Jiva Shakti, Gunasa, Prakriti and time, and is glanced upon by the Lord, transformed into another form by the Lord's desire to create. So Mahat Tattva took another form called as Ahankara. So Ahankara is nothing but Mahat Tattva predominated by Tamoguna. Mahat Tattva predominated by Tamoguna is called as Ahankara because essentially the creation process, it actually starts from subtle to gross. And annihilation, it will go from gross to subtle. So creation starts from subtle to gross, just like any product development in any company. The product development will go from subtle to gross. Initially, they will have an idea in their mind. We want to develop something for this purpose. And that idea will take up a little more grass form. It will take up into, and then the next form will develop into a little more grass form. Like in any, maybe those who work in some IT department, IT software building, they might have some experience. How initially, the final person, certain people, they do the actual coding. Before the coding, the idea actually starts from subtle to next to grass idea, like that. It goes into different stages. In any product development, whether in IT field or other field. So similarly, creation starts from subtle to grass. So we can see, so from the Maya potency, the Mahat Tattva comes, and from Mahat Tattva, Sutra Tattva comes, and Mahat Tattva, the Ahankara comes. And now the Ahankara is there, and after the Mahat Tattva transforms into Ahankara, and this Ahankara transforms into three portions. Ahankara in Sattva Guna, Ahankara in Rajo Guna, and Ahankara in Tamo Guna. So Ahankara in Sattva Guna is called as Vaikarika Ahankara. In Rajo Guna is called as Taijasa. And Ahankara in Tamo Guna is called as Tamasa. So that is the 29th verse. So this Ahankara transforms into these three forms. So if you see, for any, there are three aspects like Karya, Karana and Kartru. Karya means the effect, and Karana means the cause, and Kartru means the doer. For example, in pot making, there is a potter, and then he uses certain instruments like a stick and a wheel, and then the final effect is the pot. The pot is the Karya, the effect. And the Karana are the instruments like a wheel or a stick, they are the Karana. And the potter is the Kartru, is the doer. So similarly, the Devatas who are controlling the senses, they are called as Adidaiva, they are the Kartru. And the different senses, knowledge acquiring senses and working senses, they are the Karana. And the different gross elements and the sense objects, they are the Karya. The gross elements, the sense objects, they are the Karya. And the knowledge acquiring senses and the working senses, they are the Karana. And the Devatas who control the senses, they are the Kartru, the doer. So the Ahankara transforms into three mode of passion is Taijasa, mode of ignorance is Tamasa. So from Ahankara in mode of goodness comes the sense, Devatas and mind. And from the Ahankara in the mode of passion comes the knowledge acquiring senses and the working senses. And from the Ahankara in mode of ignorance comes the five gross elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, and the sense objects. Sense objects means sound, touch, form, and taste, these five sense objects. So these are described in this sequence of verses. The 29th verse says that Ahankara transforms into the three forms, Vaikarika, Taijasa and Tamasa. And so from the Vaikarika Ahankara, so we read Prabhupada's translation, Mahat Tattva, or the great causal truth, transforms into false ego, which is manifested in three phases: cause, effect, and the doer. So the doer portion of the doer portion of the Ahankara, that refers to the Vaikarika Ahankara. that refers to the Devata, because from the Vaikarika Ahankara comes the sense Devatas. And from the Taijasa portion of the Ahankara, that corresponds to the effect, the Karana. Because from the Taijasa portion of the Ahankara comes the working senses and the knowledge acquiring senses. So Karana, you can remember the potter example. Potter, the instruments and the pot. Kartru, Karana and Karya. And from the Tamasa portion of the Ahankara, that is called as Tamasa, that corresponds to the Karya, because from the Tamasa portion of the Ahankara comes the 5 gross elements and the 5 sense objects. So Prabhupada in this purport, he says that he talks about this Ahankara, like those people who have the false ego in the mode of passion, like those who are those people who have the false ego in the mode of goodness, such people, they think that every person is God. They think that living entity is one with God. Those who have the false ego in the mode of goodness, they think that Jiva is equal to God. And those who have false ego in the mode of passion, these people, they engage in some altruistic activities as if they are agents appointed to do good to others. And these people, they also try to lord it over material things. And those people who have the false ego in the Tamo Guna, they think that they completely identify with the body. They are only interested in instant pleasure from gratification of the body. So all of this, in this way, the false ego, when it manifests in a practical way, false ego in mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance, like how it manifests, how those people indulge in different activities, that is described by Prabhupada in the purport. So, and then, 30th verse, going ahead. So the mind and the sense devatas arise from the Vaikarika Ahankara. And these sense devatas, they only reveal the sense objects. Just like suppose you want to see something. You should have an eye. You should have a sense. And then you also need the cooperation of the Devata. If the Devata does not give the permission to use the sense organ, then you cannot see an object. And you also need the sunlight. Without the sunlight, you cannot actually see an object. Therefore, the sense objects are revealed to be the sense Devata. And then from the knowledge acquiring senses and action senses arise from the Taijasa Ahankara, and intelligence also arises from Taijasa Ahankara. So one may get the question, like we hear in the Bhagavad Gita 3rd chapter, Indriyani Paranyagur Indriyebhya Param Manaha Manasastu Parabuddhir Yo Buddhe Paratastutaha. We hear in the 3rd chapter that intelligence is higher than the mind. But here we see that mind comes from false ego in mode of goodness, and intelligence comes from false ego in the mode of passion. But here in the Bhagavad Gita, mind is higher than the intelligence. So how do we understand that? When Krishna is speaking about the hierarchy in the 3rd chapter, about intelligence being higher than the mind, so Krishna is referring to the spiritual intelligence which we acquire by gurus, by hearing from Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. And that spiritual intelligence is higher than the material mind. But when the intelligence, when it is not strengthened by hearing from Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, then that intelligence will make plans for enjoying material sense gratification. And that intelligence, in one sense, is actually inferior to the mind. Because we see the mind actually maintains the material desires. And intelligence, maintenance is in the Sattva Guna. Mind maintains the material desires. Therefore, mind comes from false ego in the mode of goodness. And intelligence takes new plans for enjoying sense gratification. It creates newer and newer plans for sense gratification. And that creation is in the mode of passion. Therefore, intelligence comes from ahankara in the mode of passion. So, the material intelligence brings about newer and newer plans for expanding material existence. And mind maintains our material existence. And intelligence expands our material existence. Therefore, intelligence comes from ahankara in rajoguna and mind comes from ahankara in sattva guna. And when Krishna says that intelligence is higher than the mind, he refers to the intelligence which is sharpened by hearing from Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. And then 32nd verse says that ahankara in tamo gives rise to the sense objects and the 5 gross elements. 1 minute. So here, from the 32nd verse, he gives a sequence of how the sense objects and the gross elements are created. So, from the ahankara in tamoguna, first arises the ether. No, from ahankara and tamoguna, first comes the sound. And then from sound comes ether. And then from ether comes touch. And from touch comes air. And then from air comes form. And from form comes fire. And then from fire comes taste. And from taste comes water. And then from water comes fragrance. And from the fragrance comes earth. In this way, there is a sequence actually. The essential sequence is from subtle to gross. So, this is how the sequence is mentioned. And one common thing, this is described in the 36th verse. And one thing we can find in the 36th verse, like in this process of creation which is described, at every step, there is the help of the time factor is there. At every step, the hand of the time factor is there, and that time factor is nothing but one of the form of the Supreme Lord. That means at every step of the creation, the Lord's help was required. Lord's help is required through the time factor. So the kala vritya, that word will come in almost in every verse. For example, we see that 33rd verse. Kala mayamsha yogena bhagavat vikshitam nabaha. Nabaso anusrutam sparsham vikurvan nirmame nilam. The Lord glanced over the sky, partly mixed with the eternal time and external energy. So at every step, the Lord's glance is required and the time factor is required. So that means, and at every step of the creation, without that hand of the Supreme Lord, the creation cannot proceed only. And this is one of the main theme of the creation. Because when you see the creation described in whether in second canto, third canto, or in Kapila Dev section, the conclusion of the creation is that the most important element is the Supreme Lord. Because without the Supreme Lord's hand, the creation does not proceed only. And that's what Prabhupada highlights in the purports also. And if you read the purports, Prabhupada will highlight that. Say, for example, if you read the 36th verse purport, 36th verse purport, from the descriptions of the physical elements in the above verses, it is clear that in all the stages, the glance of the Supreme Lord is needed with the other additions and alterations. So in every transformation, the last finishing touch is the glance of the Supreme Lord, who acts as a painter does when he mixes different colors to transform them into a particular color. So therefore, just like in a painter, the finishing touch is given by the painter. Without you may have all the colors, everything, but without the painter, the beautiful drawing or painting will not come. So therefore, in every stage of creation, the finishing touch is given by the glance of the Supreme Lord. So in this way, all these elements are created. And then he said, in the 36th verse purport, Prabhupada says, although there are different mixtures of different material elements, such mixtures do not take place automatically, just as a mixture of colors does not take place automatically without the touch of the living painter. Therefore, the hand of the Supreme Lord is required. That is why Krishna says in the Gita, Maya Yakshena Prakritihi Suyatesa Characharam Ketunanena Kaunte Jagat Viparivartate. The whole material nature acts according to my direction. And then the 37th verse, it is mentioned, Bhutanam Nava Adinam Yadyad Bhavaya Varavaram Tesham Paranu Samsargat Yata Santyam Gunan Vidu. So in this verse describes that all the qualities of each element, starting with the ether, increase successively as they progress towards the inferior, combining with the qualities of the superior elements. So what does it mean is that just like 100 rupees contains 50 rupees, and 50 rupees contains 20, and 20 contains 10 rupees, 10 rupees contains 5 rupees, 5 rupees contains 1 rupee. So similarly, if you see the quality of earth contains the qualities of all the previous elements. Earth has fragrance, it has taste, it has form, it has touch sensation, it has sound. And the water contains the qualities of the previous elements and its own unique quality. Water contains a taste, form, touch, and sound. And similarly, form contains the fire contains form, touch, and sound. So just like 100 rupees contains the previous denomination, similarly the subsequent elements contain the qualities of the previous thing. Or like Madhurya Rasa includes Vatsalya, Sakya, Dasya and Shanta. Vatsalya includes Sakya, Dasya. Recently there was one some famous guru, he made a goof up in some philosophical things. He said that Yashoda was the mother of Krishna, but after Krishna grew, Yashoda became a lover of Krishna. This is a Siddhantic goof up actually. Vatsalya Rasa does not include Madhurya Rasa. Madhurya includes Vatsalya Rasa. It's like saying that 50 rupees includes 100 rupees. 100 rupees includes 50, but not 50 rupees does not include 100. So, that is described in 37th verse. The subsequent elements have the qualities of the previous elements. And then 38th verse is an important verse. Yete deva kala vishnu kala mayamsha linginaha nanatvat sva kriyanisha prochu pranjalayo vibhum. So, at this point, the devatas who were created, they were unable to perform their function. Therefore, they started offering fascinating prayers to the Lord. The devatas of the various elements who are known as the Kala Vishnu, the portions of Vishnu, and who are possessing the power of transformation. They are endowed with a different power, but they were unable to perform their functions in creating universe. They were interested with the different functions of the universal duties and were unable to perform them. So therefore, they started offering fascinating prayers to the Lord. And so the last section is the prayers offered with the Devata. So we see till this point, the Lord's hand was required in every part of the creation. Now, after these elements were created, the creation has to proceed further, and the Devatas were supposed to do, but the Devatas were unable to perform their function. Therefore, they started offering prayers to the Lord. And here, Prabhupada says that, like one may say that, these Devatas, they actually put the living entities in the material bodies. It is like putting the criminals into the jail. These Devatas are to be condemned, because these Devatas, they are actually putting the spirit souls into the material body. So one may criticize the Devatas by saying that these Devatas are causing pain upon the living entity. But Prabhupada writes the purport, actually these Devatas are causeless assistants of the Supreme Lord. They deserve to be worshipped. They are actually servants of the Supreme Lord. The Nectar of Devotion, when Rupa Goswami describes the Dasya Rasa, he describes 4 types of servants of the Lord. Adhikrita Dasa, Ashrita Dasa, Parshada Dasa and Anuga Dasa. And Devatas come under the Adhikrita Dasa, they are appointed servants of the Lord. So therefore, these Devatas, because they actually they assist in the Lord's creation, whether a person wants to practice Jnana Yoga or Nishkama Karma Yoga, any path, they cannot, all these are Bhakti Yoga, devotional service, all these paths cannot be practiced without having a material body with the senses. Like even in Bhakti Yoga, when you want to offer some flower or a fruit, you need this flower and fruit. Therefore, and Devatas are assisting in the Lord's creation by producing flower, fruits, etc. And Devatas assist the living entity in using their senses. Therefore, any path, whether Jnana Yoga, Nishkam Karma Yoga or Bhakti Yoga, one needs actually the different elements, one needs the senses to practice those paths. And even those who want to go to hell by performing sinful activities, they also use the senses and the sense objects to lord it over matter. And so Devatas are actually assisting in the plan of the Lord, therefore they should not be condemned. So Prabhupada says that one may be angry with Yamaraj for the thankless task of punishing the sinful souls. But Yamaraj is one of the authorized devotees of the Lord, and so are all the other Devatas. A devotee of the Lord is never controlled by such Devatas who function as assistants of the Lord. At the same time, a devotee of the Lord does not foolishly mistake the Devatas to be the Supreme Lord. So you don't, there are two, if you want to submit Devata worship, if you want to summarize Devata worship, you can summarize in two sentences. You don't worship Krishna by disrespecting his limbs, who are the Devatas. And you don't worship Krishna by only respecting his limbs. Both are two different extremes. Some people, they worship only Devatas, the limbs of Krishna, but they don't worship Krishna. And some people worship Krishna but that they disrespect the limbs of Krishna, that the Devatas. Therefore, you worship Krishna but not respect the Devatas, that's the right attitude. Therefore, considering the Devatas to be the Supreme Lord, that is the atheistic mentality. Yastu Narayanam Devam, Brahma Rudradi Devate, Samadve Naiva, that anyone who places the Devatas on the same level as the Supreme Lord Vishnu is considered a partiality. So, the Devatas actually, the Supreme Lord The Devatas, they only give the sufferings of the living entities according to their karma. To the Yamarachas people, it is according to the karma of the living entity. Just like Ganges water, on the bank of the Ganges water, there may be Nimba tree, Neem tree, or a mango tree. But mango tree gets mango fruits, Neem tree gives neem fruit. So it is not the fault of the Ganges water, it is the individual quality of the seed. So the last section, I will take up some prayers today and then we will complete the remaining prayers tomorrow. There are 14 prayers, 13 or 14 prayers offered in this last section. So Prabhupada says, Devatas offered fascinating prayers to the Lord. Deva Vuchuhu Nanamate Deva Padara Vindam Prapannatopashamata Patram Yanmula Keta Yatayonja Soru Samsara Dukkam Bahirukshipanti. So Devata said that this prayer, one common thing is that they are actually glorifying the lotus feet of the Lord. That common theme will come. Nanama te deva padaravindam. We offer respect to your lotus feet, which is like the ambatam, which is an umbrella which relieves the suffering of those surrendered to you. Prapanna tapa upashama. Prapanna means surrendered people. Tapa, series of those who are surrendered, which this lotus feet, which is like an umbrella, which relieves the suffering of those surrendered to you. And yan mula keta yatayonja soru samsara dukkam bahirukshipanti. The devotees who take shelter of your lotus feet very quickly, very quickly and easily. Anjasa means here quickly or easily. Very quickly approve the suffering of material life. So yan mula means by taking shelter of your lotus feet, that means shelter of lotus feet means by engaging in devotional service, that it actually throws off the material life, the suffers material life very quickly and from the root. Just like Krishna Chakravarti gives an analogy, suppose when a leech comes in your leg, a person will take the leech and will take the leech from the root and throw that leech to a far distance in such a way that leech will not come again to you. Like sometimes when you catch a rat, if you have experience of catching a rat in the rat trap in your house, and then once the rat is trapped in this one, you have to people will take the rat trap to a distant place and throw the rat there. Because many times you may throw the rat maybe in the next street or something, but you will see the next day the same rat in your house. You have to throw to a distant place in such a way the rat does not come. And it is not that like you take one rat and the rat, but there are other small rats are there. You have to so similarly, when there is a leech in your body, you take the leech from the root and throw it at a distant place in such a way it does not come. The same analogy, when a person takes shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, he throws off one's material life from the root and without any delay, very quickly, and it throws off one's material life from the root without any delay and in such a way that it does not come again. So that means those who do not take shelter of the Lord's lotus feet, they throw off material life with delay and not at the root, and they again get attacked by material life. That is what in the 6th canto, the Ajamil section, when Sukadeva Goswami, when Parishit Maharaj asked the question, what is the solution for people suffering in hell? Parishit Maharaj initially gave solution from Karma Kanda and later gave solution from Jnana Kanda. But Parishit Maharaj said that many people perform atonement to get rid of the suffering, but then they stop suffering, they stop the sinful activity for some time, but after some time they again perform the same activity. So when people take shelter of other processes other than bhakti, then they may get purified of their sins for some time, but after some time they may again indulge in those sins. That means the ajnana, the sinful desires are not removed from the root. They are not removed from the root, therefore they again become attached. But here, yan moola keta yatayonja soru means, by taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, one throws off one's material life quickly from the root and in such a way that it will not come back. So in one sense, this verse also, we can say that this verse also, we can relate with the first characteristic of bhakti, that is kleshagni. Because prapanna tapa upashama. Kleshagni also, Rupa Goswami discussed these points. Bhakti destroys all the three causes of suffering. That is papa, bija and ajnana. So the same siddhanta is actually presented in this particular verse. The second verse, Datar yadasmin bhava isha jivas tapatrena vigatana sharma atman labante bhagavam savangri chayam sa vidyam ata ashrayema. So the main point of this verse is that, O Lord, O maintainer, Data, that the bhakti is the only process to get freedom from suffering. By following the path of jnana marga, one cannot attain peace. That is the theme of this verse. Because since the jivas afflicted with the three miseries do not attain peace within themselves in the material world, even with the knowledge, chayam sa vidyam. Somebody may have lot of knowledge of the Shastra, but even with the knowledge, the living entities do not attain peace, being afflicted with the three. Therefore, we want to take shelter of your lotus feet. That means we want to take shelter of Bhakti Yoga. Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga may destroy the sinful desires, but Jnana Yoga may not destroy the ajnana, the ignorance. So, if you Prabhupada's purport also, he quotes these verses, Vasudeve Bhagavati, and then Tesham Sadata Yuktanam Bhajatam Priti Purvakam. The argument that unless one has proper knowledge, one cannot be freed from material miseries is undoubtedly true. But because the lotus feet of the Lord are full of transcendental knowledge, acceptance of his lotus feet completes that necessity. So second, this verse, the theme of this verse is that with having lot of knowledge, one cannot attain complete peace. So bhakti is the only process to get freedom from suffering completely. And then 41st verse, Marganti yatte mukapatma nidai chandas suparnai rishayo vivikte yasyagamarshoda saridvaraya padam padam tirtha pada prapanna. So here they say, we have taken shelter of your lotus feet, which is the place of pilgrimage, Tirtha Pada. There are many verses in the Bhagavatam where the Lord is called as Tirtha Kirti. The Lord's lotus feet is the place where all the holy places reside. We have taken shelter of your lotus feet, which is the place of pilgrimage, and this lotus feet gives rise to the Ganga, which is the best of the rivers. Sharid Varaya. Sharid Varaya means the best of the rivers. Yes, and this river, what is the nature of this river? Yasya Aga Marshoda. This river is a destroyer of sin. And so the Lord's lotus feet gives rise to Ganga, which is the best of the rivers and a destroyer of sin. And the Lord's lotus feet is also sought by the sages. Marganti yatte. Marganti means sought or searching after the sages are searching after the Lord's lotus feet. How do they search after the Lord's lotus feet? Just like in a forest, sometimes certain travelers are lost and they are looking for some shelter. So at that time they see some birds in the sky, and then they are just following those birds in the sky, because birds, they will go to some nice tree to take shelter, and they are following those birds, and then by following those birds they come to that particular tree, and then in the shade of the take shelter and they rest there. So similarly, the sages, they are following the birds, and the birds are compared to the Vedas. And by following the Vedas, by studying the Vedas, they are searching for the real shelter. And the Vedas ultimately point to what? The Vedas point to the Supreme Lord. Vedaisya sarvais aham eva vedya vedanta krit veda videva cha. The Vedas ultimately take the living entity, direct the living entity to take shelter of the Supreme Lord. Just like the travelers who are seeing the birds ultimately take they direct the person to come to that particular tree, and then the travelers enter the tree. So similarly, the sages are searching after the Vedas, and then by searching the Vedas, they come to take shelter of you. That is what the first two lines. Marganti yatte mukha padma needais chanda suparnai. So chanda is the Vedas, and the suparna refers to the wings of the Vedas. Chanda suparnai rishayo vibhikte. So sages seek in their minds by following the bird of the Vedas situated in the nest of your lotus mouth. So therefore, in this verse describes two ladders. One is the Vedas and another is the Ganges. So one is the Vedas and another is the Ganges. The Ganges emanate from the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, which destroys all the sins. That means by worshipping Ganges, one can worship the Lord's lotus feet. It is said that when the Lord appears as a water form, he is the Ganges. Ganges is a non-different from the Lord's incarnation in the water form. So even Shankaracharya, Prabhupada quotes that verse, Bharatamrita sarvasvam Vishnu Vaktrad Vinishritam Gita Gangodakam Pitva Punarjanmana Vidyate. By drinking the Ganges waters of the Gita, the divine quintessence of the Mahabharata emanating from the holy lotus mouth of Lord Vishnu, one will never take rebirth in the material world again. In other words, by devotionally reciting the Gita, the cycle of birth and death is terminated. So, Gita emanated from the Lord's mouth and Ganges emanated from the Lord's lotus feet. In one sense, there is no difference between the Lord's mouth and the lotus feet. So, both are actually on the transcendental platform. So, this verse describes that the Devatas are glorifying that some sages, they take shelter of your lotus feet by searching after the Vedas, and there are others, they take shelter of your lotus feet by taking bath in the Ganges which have emanated from you, which destroy the sin. So the theme of all the verses is actually the lotus feet. I will just complete with the next verse and then maybe I will take up this next class. So you slightly behind, but the next class will go fast. So anybody has any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I had a query in the 30th shloka, which says actually there are these items actually which are produced by the interaction of the false ego, mode of goodness and passion. So which are these items which are actually produced in the mode of goodness and passion and false ego? I was not really very clear on this. I was just thinking that from the mode of goodness, mind and demigods come out, and from the false ego, passion, senses
and from ignorance sense objects. Is my understanding correct, or you can just correct me, Prabhuji?
Yeah, your understanding is correct. From false ego in mode of goodness comes mind and the sense devatas.
Okay.
From the mode of passion comes knowledge acquiring senses, action senses, and also intelligence.
Okay.
And from false ego in mode of ignorance comes the five gross elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether. And the five sense objects, that is the touch, sound, taste, form, and fragrance.
And then these go on elaborating, like for example, this for sound is sky, and for the sky is like air. The tanmatras for. Yeah, so then when we have the Lord's glance plus the time and the external energy, then actually the whole creation basically starts with all these three combined together: the Lord's glance, time, and the external energy.
Yes. Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I pointed out, that every stage of creation, the Lord's glance is required.
Yeah, I missed that point maybe.
If you read the 36th verse purport, the beginning section of the purport I read out, you can read the 36th verse purport in the beginning. Every stage of creation, the Lord's glance is required. And even after, at this point, everything is created, without the Lord's intervention, the Devatas were not able to further proceed in creation. Therefore, in the creation, pastimes highlight, the main point which is highlighted is that how the Supreme Lord's intervention is required in every stage of the Lord's creation. It is like, we can say, these days, like suppose you are connecting the laptop with the projector, and projector is connected with the power supply, and then laptop is connected with the power supply, and the screen is there. Everything is set, but you don't see anything in the screen. All these things are set, but you don't see anything in the screen. And then somebody says, "Oh, you didn't switch off the power supply." Only when you switch on the power supply, then when the electricity starts going, then actually you are able to see the image in the screen. So in that, in one sense, the sense devatas are created, the sense objects are created, and then the elements are created, the senses are created. It is like connecting the laptop with the PowerPoint, projector, everything. But still, they were unable to proceed with the creation, because the point is that electricity is not flowing, the main power supply is not on. So only when the electricity starts flowing, then everything starts. Similarly, only when the Lord's intervention, Lord's plans are, Lord intervenes in every step of the creation, then the creation starts. Although the electricity is invisible. See this example, what you see inside is maybe the best latest projector from Samsung or whichever company you see, the Mac, laptop, everything is there. But then main thing which will make everything work is electricity, and that electricity, nobody sees that. So similarly, that Lord's hand is the most important element in the creation, but he remains hidden. That's why it is said the best manager is somebody who does everything perfectly, but who remains in the background. The Lord actually carries out everything in the creation through his energy, but he carries out so perfectly by remaining in the background, and people think that there is no God. And that proves the perfection of the Lord's management.
Also, a little more clarification I wanted on, Canto 2, where actually, where they said that, Kal is manifested, and it says Kala Guna Vyatikaraha. So Kal, they say that over there is the first cause of all creation, and by transformation of nature, different activities of this material world become visible. So, and because the gunas get agitated from a state of equilibrium from time, so what role does this time have now in this particular, situation or case over here, Prabhuji, in this particular chapter, in these shlokas?
The time, actually, like, for example, the time, time is one of the form of the Supreme Lord.
Okay.
Creation happens only after the entire night of Brahma has passed.
Okay.
After the 12 hours of Brahma has passed, and then the next morning creation starts.
Okay.
So the time factor plays the role. Okay, this is the time for creation.
Okay.
It remains. Okay, this is the time for creation, and that time factor is nothing but another aspect of the Supreme Lord. Kalos me, Krishna says. So time helps in creation. Also, time helps in annihilation. Time annihilates everything, and time also plays a role in creation. So this is the time for creation, and the night time of Brahma ends. The right time comes. The time remains, and the time factor is nothing but the Supreme Lord only.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Are you able to hear, bro?
Somebody had something. Why the gross element sense objects refers to karya? Now, karya means here does it mean that karta used karana to create karya? So karya here refers the effect actually. The karya refers the like there are different meanings to the same Sanskrit word. Karya refers the effect here. Karana refers to the cause, the instruments which are used, and kartru refers the doer. The gross elements, the sense objects are referred to the karya. The senses are referred to the karana. In fact, karana or karana is. Yeah, senses are referred to the karana, and the devatas are referred to the kartru. Why the gross elements, sense objects referred to karya? Karya means activity. Does it mean that karta used karana to create karya? When we hear mixed with eternal time, what exactly is it? Our understanding of time is something different. Can we understand it in some tangible way or just accept? Mixed with the, it is little theoretical in the sense that mixed with the eternal time. In the sense, you see that like the creation proceeds in different steps. When one step is completed, then the next step starts, and then the next step. Of course, it all happens. So then it happens so sequentially. You don't see the difference, but it is described in just like some garland. Suppose there are 10 petals are there. One petal you put the needle into the first petal and then comes out of the 10th petal. But it comes out as if immediately the next second to the 10th petal. But actually it is going through sequentially, first petal, second petal, third petal, fourth petal, like that. And there is a slight difference between time from going from first petal to second petal to third petal, etc. So the creation has happened proceeding systematically, and the time factor is playing a role. In the sense, time factor plays a role in when the creation should begin and when the annihilation should start. And time factor also plays a role in the different steps of creation. Okay, at this time, Mahat Tattva is created, and then the next step is this. Mixed with the eternal time. We can say, just like for example, when a living entity is born, the living entity goes through different stages: Balya, Paugan, Kaumara, Kaishora, and then old age, like that. So he is growing. His creation is, his transformation is happening, but in different stages after certain years. At the age of 5, okay, this happened. This many teeth came. Some teeth fell, like that. We can see in relation to the time factor. So similarly, the creation, the manifestation of Mahat Tattva, false ego, everything, also in the time factor also plays a role. Here we see that there are devatas praying to Mahavishnu. So these were the creation of the universe. Can you tell more about details about these devatas? More details of these devatas are actually in charge of the senses, and these devatas were created. More details I don't know, beyond what is there in the here. Before the creation of the universe means actually creation has started, and the creation starts with the glance of Mahavishnu. But before the creation of the bodies of the living entities, the devatas were created. Devatas were created in the first phase of creation, and they were supposed to carry out phases of creation. Their role will come in the next phase of creation, but they were not able to perform their duties, how to mix the different elements, and therefore they are actually seeking the help of the Supreme Lord. Therefore they are offering these prayers. So devatas were not. They were not present before the creation. The creation has started. The first phase of creation, devatas have appeared. These devatas are outside the universe. As in the next chapter, universe is created. Yeah, they are manifest. They are outside the universe. Generally, we tend to think in terms like we don't have to think in terms of physical place. Okay, they are situated there or not. The main, you have to understand the main concept over here. The concept which is being presented is that the devatas were unable to make the creation proceed on their own. They needed the help of the Supreme Lord, and that is the Siddhanta which is being presented now. Because sometimes when we think in terms of the physical place where they outside the universe, which place they were there, so we cannot get the exact answer to that. So I would prefer to focus on the main Siddhanta, because sometimes if that particular, whether they were present in some which outside the universe, which place they were there, if those points were focused on the purport, then I have something to say. So usually none of the acharyas have focused on this purport. What they have focused is that how the devatas were not able to proceed with the creation, so therefore they had to depend on the Supreme Lord. They offered prayers to the Lord. So that is the theme which is being presented. If I know more information, then I can share. So somebody wanted to share some point in the interval. They mentioned something. And share.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, Prabhuji had asked this question about this Vedanta Bhagavatam. It is part of the Jiva Goswami's first shloka commentary of Srimad Bhagavatam. And I think he mentions there, I read Prabhuji, that there are certain sutras, like the first two sutras are the essence of all other sutras, the most important sutras. And this first shloka of Bhagavatam directly there is reference like for each line for each sutra there is some reference is there. For first sloka